Hey, good Tuesday morning. It's Hometown Heroes, and I'm with my co-host Mary Staffeld, and we're just glad to be here today. It's going to be
Yeah.
a good hour. We're talking about roll call, and Mary's got some exciting things from last month's meeting. I was missing action last month. I was at a clay shoot that day, so Mary
Yeah,
really
but
gave me.
Kay stepped in, boy. She did a great
She
job.
did a great job.
She
Yeah,
really did.
yeah,
So
she's a great photographer.
yeah, yeah, we are very grateful for the depth of talent within the organization. So she is a longtime volunteer. So we'll get to that. But yeah, it's good to be here. Our favorite day of the week, right, Rick?
Absolutely. It's kind of like Brenda Linhart always says that roll call is her favorite day of the month. So
Yeah, yeah. And she and the team at Birchman are amazing, amazing, amazing people. But before we jump into roll call, Friday, and you're a Vietnam era veteran, so you get it as much as anybody else. And I was young up. I was a preteen and a teen during the really bad years of Vietnam, and so have a lot of memories from that time. And I think Bill Pugh, his being on those two Tuesdays before Vietnam Veteran Day was probably, without even thinking about it, one of the most impactful things we could have done. And hopefully a lot of Vietnam veterans were able to hear him through the various ways that this podcast goes out, and really get some healing, because I think he said a lot of things that so many of them feel. It was a time when we as an American public were so bad to those folks coming back. War is hell. Those guys that were in country did things, saw things, experienced things that no human being ever wants to experience. They didn't choose to have to go through what they went through. And so not everybody that was there were great people. Certainly there's bad folks everywhere. The vast majority of those guys coming home did their absolute best to do what their country sent them to do, and got treated so poorly coming home. And I hope that they can take some healing and some solace from Bill sharing some really difficult stories, and know that we honor them and we appreciate them. And it's sad that happened, and I pray that it never ever happens again for folks to come home. I went to basic training in 1978, graduated from tech school in early 79. And in my leave between tech school and my first duty station, they told us, when you go home, and this is, early 1979, the war has been over several years. But there was still such a bad taste in people's mouth, and those Vietnam veterans were still being treated so poorly, that they said, when you go home, don't go out in your uniform. Don't, people don't need to know that you're military. You'll get treated badly. And I mean, it was just, it's so different. And people that were returning from Iraq and Afghanistan, they came home. And I'm one of those folks that came home from the Middle East, not Iraq or Afghanistan, but I came home from the Middle East several times and we came home to a hero's welcome. We
absolutely.
being treated so, we got great send-offs, we got great welcome homes. But I pray that Bill and his story and what he shared, that it was healing to some of our folks that are listening out there, because there's so many of them that are still suffering in silence. There's still so many that don't want to talk about it. And the reality is that what we hear from them when they do talk about it is how much better and how much lighter they feel, how much they finally let it go. It's not a, once you let the light in. And I pray that more of them can find their way to letting go and letting those stories out, sharing them however they feel they can, and then knowing that it's not doesn't define their lives. So
That's right.
yeah. So my incredible thanks to Bill for being so brave to share everything that he shared.
His stories were incredible. And you think about Bill, he was, he got drafted. He was an E4, E5, and there was hundreds and hundreds of thousands of our young men and women who went to Vietnam that have stories. And so often all we do is hear the stories of the people that kind of got a little notoriety.
Right.
And we don't get to hear those stories like with Bill or with Bill Henry.
Right.
And other Vietnam veterans. And there's a part of me that really wants to start maybe at night just getting 4 or 5 of them on this platform that we have and just let them talk. Spend a couple hours, let them talk. Maybe get guys that were there from the different services during the Tet Offensive, or the people that were early on, the people that were pilots, the people that were on the ground. Because just like with our World War II guys, one of these days we're going to run out of time, and we won't have all their stories.
That's exactly
and they
right.
won't have told their stories. So
yeah. And if you looked at that average age, Rick, and we've shared this at the roll call lunch, and the average age in World War II was about 26. The average age in Vietnam was about 19. And you look at the number of days in actual combat, World War II was significantly less than the number of days of combat that they saw in Vietnam. But yet, and rightly so, we hold those World War II veterans in high esteem because they are, they left, they didn't know how long some of them were gone 2-3 years. Some of them, you hear the stories, they were out in the fields for, a year without a shower and, things that were just not pleasant. But, we often forget that Vietnam was a much longer, these guys, man, I'll tell you, and then to come home the way they did. So I never want a Vietnam vet to not know that we, Rick and I on this podcast, and we at Roll Call and any other organization, you came home wrong. And we need to always make that right.
Absolutely.
We can't forget the spouses. And, I'm reminded, that just reminds me, the spouses and the families, they suffered along with that veteran, because it wasn't just the veteran that was being mistreated. It was their families and it was their spouses. So, never forget that when a member of an individual serves in the military, their entire family serves. And too often we tend to forget that too. So, maybe another topic for another show, bringing in some military spouses. I've had, comments and a couple of other spouses mentioned that to me even before, is, what if we heard from some of the spouses what it was like, while their husband was off serving, and that, they serve too. They really do serve too.
Then you have to think about the spouses and the family members that had those veterans that came home that were wounded in action, and they had to be the caregivers, and some of them caregivers for years and years on those that were critically injured, or and then all the Gold Star families. And we didn't have the support for the Gold Star families like we do now. And you start talking to people, and just like General Aiken, she was a Gold Star daughter. Her dad got killed in Vietnam, but I started talking to her about it. I said, "Well, you're a Gold Star kid." "Well, yeah, I guess I am." But you see those Vietnam families, and for some reason, we don't think about all the Gold Star. 58,000 men and women got killed over there.
Right.
and all those that are missing. Just like with Mo Baker, his wife Honey, her husband was a pilot, missing in action for years, and then finally declared dead. And you don't think about people like that, but then to see the way that she and Mo got together, and she got another pilot. So, but just a good couple with good stories like that.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
yeah, Bill's stories last week. That was a lot of stuff he talked about, a lot of death, a lot of battles and stuff, and it was only just 5 months of the whole time he was over there that he was in action like that. So it was some great stories with him.
Yeah, and so speaking of the last luncheon and tying those two together, I got contacted by a young lady shortly, like the day before her schedule freed up, and she'd been invited several times to come to the roll call lunch. And all of a sudden her schedule freed up, and she called and she said, if at all possible, I would love to be able to come. Her father is missing in action in Laos.
Wow.
And, so not only did she come to the luncheon, she came to Boomer Jacks with us afterwards, and just really got to spend a lot of time with people that could wrap their arms around her and give her a little additional support as we were on the cusp of Vietnam Veterans Day. So I think it really impacted her even more because of the timing of it. And the timing of when he went missing was like right there. I mean, everything just came together, and it's kind of like a God thing, right?
Absolutely.
Everything happens for a reason. So, the lunches are special, and Rick, that you've been, gosh, how long you've been coming to the lunches longer than I have?
Since 2017, probably September.
Yeah. So probably that time is when I first started coming, was in 2017, and I think Roy came in a little bit earlier in 17, and so we've seen a lot of changes from the original. What is roll call? And we've talked a lot about this is our logo, and it's kind of plain, and it really what roll call is, but to a military person, roll call is where you get everybody together and you do roll call. You want to make sure
you better be there too.
You better be there, or you're absent without leave, right?
That's right.
So we do roll call, and that's when your name is called and you need to respond. And so we call their names and they respond and they come to the luncheon. But it's roll call. So in some ways we need to kind of create something to put underneath there that tells people exactly kind of sort of what. This is a great shot. And Rick takes such great pictures at the lunch.
That's one of Kay's shots there. So
but we use Rick's photos of our veterans freely when they're there. And this picture is this last luncheon, and down in the table, right down in the very bottom, is one of the guys that I served with, and he's RSVP'd 1,000 times. And that's the first time he showed up, and I saw his name on the list. And then I was walking around just visiting with folks, and I walked up and he was there, and I was like, oh, you really made it. So it was kind of nice. A lot of fun talking about our time in Kuwait, but we served together in the 301st Security Forces. But this room, this is 58 round, eight seat tables. So that's, I think if you do the math, it's somewhere around 362 seats, somewhere in that ballpark. And you can see that pretty much every seat is full. And then there's another, or not 300, it's 462. And then there's another 60-ish, 50 to 60 volunteers that you're not seeing all of, but you see a few of them out there. So, a lunch is, and you see our banners across the top. Those are our sponsors. So our sponsors like American Airlines, Lockheed Martin, we've just reconfirmed them for a year. They're back on board with us. Navy Federal, Black Rifle Coffee, American Legion, Post 297 here in Benbrook. Jeff Owings Auto, he is a major supporter of ours. And I always tell people, if you're looking for a used car and you want an honest person to sell it to you, go to Grand Prairie, go to Jeff Owings, and he will make sure that he takes great care of you. He
takes care of our vets for sure.
And him and his wife love the organization, but they won't come to a luncheon regularly because they don't want to take a seat away from a veteran. So in April, when we're on base, we always try to make sure to invite them, along with Mike Reppert, who, of course, is with Spectrum. He's a financial advisor with Spectrum, and he did our matching contribution campaign the end of last year, raised a lot of money for us. This picture of this hall, the way it looks right now, is not the way it's going to look in a few months. They're getting ready to renovate. So for a few months, starting in either May or June, we will have to relocate, and we'll be relocating to the Willow Park Baptist Church. It's about 13 miles west of here. And they have plenty of space. They're welcoming us. They have a big kitchen. Brenda's going to still cook. Everything will be exactly the same. It'll just be a different location for a couple of months so that they can do a big renovation here to allow us more seating. So we'll be able to put folks upstairs as well. And that will alleviate some of this super tight, the way that it is in there right now. But you can see the flags. Every month those flags are up. I think we missed for sure if the POWMIA table is over there or not, but we've been putting out the POWMIA table, because that is an important part of our heritage as well. But yeah, it's a full house there. You were missed, Rick, but Kay did a great job.
So whenever somebody first comes to roll call, they usually will see some of our volunteers.
Right. So we actually have separated out our check-in areas because it was super congested. People were getting their name tags here. Then they were trying to check them in. It was just super congested. And so what we did was that some folks, like me, we have our names on our shirts already. So we don't need a name tag. So we don't need to come into this area. But so when a member first comes in, they come to the registration area. They pick up their name tag. Then they go down to the church hall, and they will always find this is Judy Choate, who is one of our board members. She's been on the board longer than me. So I think she came along in either late 2016 or sometime in 17. And then Becky Dorn, who has been a long time volunteer. I don't like if she misses a lunch, and she comes a long way. She drives from Frisco or Plano, I can't remember which, but it's
a long way off.
Right, to every month to be there to help and to give hugs and to hear stories. And she is a phenomenal volunteer and a donor. So she contributes to help keeping the organization running. So
we have so many great volunteers, and the Daughters of the American Revolution. We've got several chapters that are actively involved in coming to serve our veterans, and a lot of them are donors too. So
exactly.
And there's a picture that Kay took, and there's several senior citizens places that bring some of the people that live there at those residences. So
yeah, this is Legend. Senior living community, and they're, I think, in the Keller area, and they bring usually probably 6 or 7. Andrea Lohman, and that's Renee Hickman with her roll call shirt. They all have roll call shirts at Legend. So when they come in, they all got their roll call shirts on, and I always got to get a hug from Renee and Andrea. And they unless they have a lot of illness in the facility, they come religiously every month. They bring these veterans, and it is just really the highlight of their month. And so we have Legend, Ridgemar Place, who's a part of Pegasus, the organization Pegasus Senior Living Community. So Ridgemar Place and Town Village Crossing are both part of Pegasus. Those come every month, and Ridgemar Place and Town Village Crossing provide the desserts every month. So one of the two of them, they alternate, and they bring the dessert. So we don't have to spend money buying dessert. And of course, you get a group of us together, and we like they eat the dessert before they eat lunch. So, dessert's important. We can't ever forget that, but they do bring them every month. They unload them at the door. We have their name tags already on the table. We set up a table specifically for them. And this last month, we had a small group show up from a place in Aledo. I can't remember the name of it, but I gave her the information because she found out about it, and she brought a few, and she said, I know I didn't RSVP, but we had a few people that had canceled that morning. So we were able to get, but we didn't have a table. And the reason we do this specific table is that they need these caregivers sitting with them. So because of the nature of the beast, it's not like, we can have them spread out around the dining room. We need to have them together. So we don't reserve tables except in the instance of these groups, because they need to remain with their caregivers.
Yeah.
That's an important piece of it.
Another thing that you will usually see is the roll call mobile museum. And one of the board members, Roy Davis, he's in charge of that mobile museum and in charge of the roll call military memorabilia collection. So just a lot of stuff in there that many of our members have donated.
Yeah.
And Ricky Stober there in the kind of brown shirt with the splotches on it, he's another historian. So we've got two great people in charge of taking care of the items that are donated, and they are very knowledgeable about a lot of stuff.
Yeah, Ricky's like in his early 20s, and he comes in at least an hour to come do this. And then Roy is in the white shirt. And then there you see Shiloh, his back turned to you. Shiloh was our speaker, and we'll talk a little more about him. And he's an Iraqi, Operation Iraqi Freedom veteran. And then Tyler is the one that's kind of facing toward us there in the middle. And Tyler is doing a documentary on Shiloh. And man, Shiloh was awesome. And I tell him he should be a stand-up comedian on top of everything else, because he really took it to another level. And then in the background, Rick, you see the final roll call, and we never forget all of the memorabilia in this museum is predominantly from DFW veterans, roll call family members that are either with us or that we've lost. And they or their families have donated these items to us to play. We have more stuff than Roy, he can ever do. He was in Burleson this past Saturday with the museum, and Dave Warwick, who was a board member, and now because he stepped aside from that, but he still does practically everything he did as a board member. He actually pulls the trailer and takes it wherever it needs to go. He's done all the work inside of it, but Roy outfitted it for Saturday with all Vietnam, because that's what the celebration was. So when somebody asks us to bring it, if we can, he'll outfit it with whatever era you would like to have in there, whatever it is that, we have schools that are teaching a certain lesson. He'll outfit that, or he can do it without the trailer. If they've got a trailer there, but it's at the school or the organization, he'll just use tables, and he'll bring whatever it is that you're asking him to bring. He's got that much stuff. We have two like 8x10, or maybe now we have one big one, store building full of stuff that folks have donated. And those that are final roll call, that's where we never forget those on, and we always remember them. So their information is always there in this museum, so that if somebody wants to know a little about their story, there's a page in a book and they can turn to that page and they can find out about that veteran.
Will he have the museum at Hops and Props?
He will. It will be at
Okay.
Hops and Props. It will be
We'll
on.
talk about that a little later too.
Yeah.
So.
Mm-hmm.
So people go in and then they see Mary, and Mary's always looking kind of confused.
I'm always talking. I'm in the middle of a conversation. So here are two of our Vietnam veterans, Bill Henry in the Cav hat and Doug Peterson, both of them helicopter guys. Doug was a dust-off pilot. And at this particular time, we were talking about the young woman coming in and her father. And I was asking those two specifically to kind of wrap their arms around her, make her feel welcome, because there would be a connection with her father and their service. And they were wonderful. They really their wings and showed her the love that we have as a family, as a roll call family, how we love one another. So we were, you always catch me when I'm mid talking.
Yeah, I didn't catch you that time. Kay did. So
yeah, okay, yeah. I'm always caught because I'm always talking. Everybody is always talking to me. But yeah, just there you go. That must be. I can't see who it is, but that must be Bill.
Yeah,
commenting.
Here's some pictures of just some of our veterans. How they come in. Roll call doesn't start till 11:30. But people start showing up about 9 o'clock, if not earlier. And this will just give you a little flavor of how the guys just sit around and talk, just visit. That's that camaraderie that we talk about.
Yeah. This is before, like Rick said, that was before the even started. So everybody walking around, and 9:30, the hall is starting to get a little full.
Looks pretty full there.
Yeah, by 10:30. Yeah, I always tell new people, I forewarn them. I say, listen, when this is your first lunch, one, because the parking lot's going to be really full, and you're going to need to be prepared for that. And two, you're going to walk in the door and you're going to be overwhelmed if you don't show up till close to 11:30. Like we've had some that just turned around and left because they couldn't find a seat. Though we always have seats, we just need to know you need one, and we will have people raise their hand, and there's always seats. We just need to know that you're looking for one, and we will point you in the right direction. But if you don't get there early, your first one, it is so full. Like at 11 o'clock, I'm thinking, oh my gosh, it must be time to start every month because it's so full. And then I look and I'm like, oh no, we don't start for 30 more minutes. But they need to be there. They need to talk. And you see the volunteer with the apron on. She's one of the DAR members. But
I think that's Larry O'Neill's sister. I think that's Laura. Yeah.
What they do is we don't have the veterans get up and go get things themselves. The volunteers will go over there and they'll see what they want to drink, and they will go get their drink and bring it back to them. So some of the vets will just stop on their way in and get it, but a lot of them, they bring it to them. This month, we had a new group do the colors. This is the International Leadership, is it Academy, or I'm not sure what they call it. They have a few campuses here in Fort Worth. They want to get more involved with us. And they just did a phenomenal job. It was really awesome having them there. They're going to be our backup for the base lunch. So they'll be at the base lunch also in the event that we can't get the Navy color guard for some odd reason for that lunch. But these guys do a great job.
And we start 11:30. We present the colors. We say we sing the national anthem, say the prayer, and say the Pledge of Allegiance. You don't see nobody taking a knee in that room.
There is, in fact, that one picture, and I just love it that you took a Barney. and David Green before Barney passed. And he was struggling to be able to stand on his own. Wanted to stand so badly that David Green, that picture I think is just worth a million words, where David is holding Barney up so he can stand and salute while they're doing the anthem. And so David's holding him, David's saluting, Barney is being held up and he's saluting. And that's magic. That's a love of a country that we need back in this country. That kind of love.
How old was Barney? He was almost 100, wasn't he?
Yeah. He was he was knocking on the door when we lost him. In fact, he was getting better from the fall that he took. He was just recovering so nicely.
And it wasn't long after he came to that meeting that he passed away. That might have been on his last meeting, maybe.
Might have been. Yeah.
Might have been. And as soon as we do the pledge, the national anthem, the prayer, and retire the colors, then everybody goes to work quickly. We have a lot of volunteers. You can see the young people these are people that just did presented the colors.
Yeah, some of them. The other ones in the black shirts and the green ties, they were from another school. So we had 10 volunteers, and I can't for the life of me remember the name of the school. But they had 10, and they're going to have 10 at the luncheon because they wanted to bring a big group, and we said we can't take more than 10 because we have so many volunteers now that we have to limit the numbers, which is a good problem to have, right? But these young men, very well behaved. They were very well dressed and did exactly what Miriam, who's in the blue shirt directing traffic, you always want to do what Miriam tells you.
The wagon master. She's a great volunteer for a lot of different organizations. Mm-hmm. You can see a shot of delivering the food, and we have all the food delivered just in 5 or 10 minutes. That's right at 500 meals. Mm-hmm. And then another part of roll call is remembering those that have just recently passed away. And, it's just part of the life cycle of a veteran. And, we don't like to have a whole screen full of them, but this month we did.
Yeah. Father Time is still undefeated, as they like to say, right?
That's right.
Rufus, we lost on the 31st of January. He was a World War II. He was one of the last survivors of the Lost Battalion. 42 months as a POW. He lived out near Wichita Falls. So after COVID, he really wasn't coming to the luncheons anymore. But, just amazing guy. Then John Welch, he was a Vietnam veteran. And, it's funny that you get to know these guys a little bit at the luncheons, and some of them a little more than others. But when you go and you read obituaries or you go to their services, you learn so much more about what incredible people they were, like Billy Robertson. And Bob Siglin started getting him finally to come to the luncheon. And he and John both were cancer. And Thomas R. Clark might have also been cancer. And once we found out they had cancer and they had to stop coming to the luncheons, it wasn't very long before they had passed. But Billy, I went to his and Bob's funeral 2 days apart, and the guy had 8 kids and a bazillion grandkids and like half the church was full of just his family. And he was Mr. Fix-It on top of everything else. There were nothing he said he couldn't fix. If somebody said something was broken, he fixed it. They talked about the church's sprinkler system and how he knew where every head was. And it was amazing to listen to so much detail about, these guys and how much they all just had a strong relationship with the Lord. And, Thomas R. Clark. So when somebody sent me, hey, you got to take Tom Clark off your email list, he's passed. And I'm like, well, we have 2 Tom Clarks and we took the one off that passed. Oh no, this is the other one. So within a few weeks of each other, both of our Tom Clarks passed. And this particular Tom Clark, he had recently moved to Fort Worth from Ohio and was like not loving Fort Worth, or he didn't like it here. He didn't know people. He didn't have anything to do. He just really was not happy. And then he found roll call, and his family told me that that was his highlight. Then he was like, now I have a family. Now I have people that I can be with, that I can talk to, that know where I've been, what I've done. And that was really special to find that he, not having been here very long, but he found that this was the one place that he could belong, that he could be a part of. And Fort Worth is incredibly military friendly, but you got to go out and find opportunities. And unless somebody like Bob Youngers, who's the guy in the middle that we lost and we've talked about so many times, that's in constantly inviting everybody to come. And so at the luncheon, Bob's son, Mike, and his wife, Debbie, Mike's wife, Debbie, they came to the luncheon and sat at the table with the people that Bob usually sat with. And the little tag that you can't read right there on the screen says something about rest in peace, save a seat for me at the roll call table in heaven. And that was on the seat that he would usually sit in, where his son and his daughter-in-law were. And we've told Mike and Debbie that they are now part of the roll call family, and they got to keep coming. And in fact, saw him at the ball game when we took Jack the other night, and got to visit with them there. But Bob was just one of those kinds. But to your point, Rick, the nature of the beast, our crowd is mostly 70 and up, and a lot more closer to 80 and up. And so it's, Father Time still undefeated.
And a few are 100 and up. So, yeah, that's just some of the support that roll call gives, not just to the veteran, but for their families too, whenever they pass away. So,
yeah, I attended 2 funerals that week. That was not the way that I would hope to spend my week.
Last month at the meeting, we had 2 speakers. So
yeah,
I heard both of them were great.
Mm-hmm. I think Scott actually listens to the podcast sometimes. If I remember right, he told me that he listens to it.
We need to get him on it.
And he said he would. I asked him, and he said he would. So we definitely need to find a time and a place. He lives in Canada. He's an actor, lives in Canada, and I found about him speaking a couple of days before. So we got on the phone, and I got to know him a little bit. And then he came to Boomer Jacks afterwards. He is a really neat guy. And he played the role, for those that have watched that HBO series, The Pacific. He played Captain Haldane. And R.V. Bergen, who was a longtime member, I think he was one of the original members of Roll Call.
Yeah, I ran across a picture of him not long ago at Roll Call, signing he was autographing his book.
Yeah, and he and Scott had of course had interactions, and he told Scott that you nailed him. Like, he was like, you hit the nail on the head with your portrayal of him. And so Scott shared some, of the insights about why he wants to be involved with veterans. He comes from a family with veterans in it, because Canadians actually served in the military and do serve in the military still today. I actually went to international leadership school with several of them. But he shared, about why he was there, why he was acting in this particular series. It was just really neat. And I think Jeff captured, you got to fast forward through parts of it when it was before we actually started the actual luncheon, but he got it on YouTube. So you can probably see Scott and Shiloh if you go find that on our YouTube for a roll call. But yeah, he shared a little bit about what was going on, and he's developed a relationship with several of the World War II veterans. Don Graves and Al Chatwin are two, and is working closely with Tracy Hunter with Beyond the Call and a couple of other groups trying to get Al Chatwin back to Guam, which is where he served in World War II. And as we've talked about Al before, if it weren't for Al doing his job, people and things that needed to get in and out of the war zone wouldn't have got in and out of the war zone. So he played a very important role in what he did.
The other speaker was Shiloh. So tell us a little bit about Shiloh.
Shiloh, I'm telling you, the guy should be a stand-up comic. He could take tragedy and make it just incredible. And his mom was there with him, supporting him. And he was injured in Iraq, and tells the story of, the incident. And then, he's not even thinking about him being injured. He's not thinking about him being on fire or any part of his body or anything else. He's thinking about, as every one of these heroes does, about the other people there. And he didn't even realize for some time that he was injured. And he tells some about being in the hospital and his mom coming to see him. And he's just like, I'm done. I'm disabled. There's nothing left for me. And, basically that whole thing that you hear from so many of these guys at first about, well, there could possibly be anything else for me in life. And yet, his mom tried to tell him, and she didn't get through. Yes, Chris, he was amazing. And then his dad, he said it was like they planned it, but then his dad came in and basically told him to shut up and get over it and get up, and there ain't anything you can't do. And it helped him. It made a change, and his resiliency, the way that he's come through what he's been through. And he tells a story about, you see ears, and he tells a story about when he got his ears the first time, and he went looking for, he had the belt, or he had the jeans, and he had the boots, the cowboy. And so he went to buy a hat, and he tells this story of being in the boot barn or wherever it was that he went to get the hat. And, this young girl's trying to help him, and he's doing, the fit in the hats and everything. And his ears pop off. And he tells the story of this little girl's face, and just he was so gracious in how he handled it. But he tells the story with humor, but yet he talks about the resiliency, and that his book Steel Will. And he talks about just, really, it is about a choice. It's a choice that we all make. We all, whether you can see our scars visibly, like Shiloh, or you can't, like Bill, we all have scars from different things. And it's how we handle it from there. What do we do? How do we make our lives and those around us better? Because he could certainly make it worse, right? He could be,
that's right.
Me, I'm just, the world's coming to an end and life, but like we've had so many, Keith and all those guys that we've had on that have had these things happen to them, but they don't look at it as a disability. They look at it as, okay, so that door closed, but here's this door, here's this window open. Where do I go from here? Because we can all do that. None of us have things in our lives that are so horrible, because we lose 22 veterans a day to suicide. We need to stop that. And it's people like Shiloh speaking that can help people see, hey, no, if he can do it, I can do it. I can come out the other side of this. And suicide is not the answer. It is not the answer, but he was phenomenal, and we'll get him. He'll come on the show. He said he would, and we just got to book a date and get him on here and let him. When I introduced him, I said, I'm not going to read your bio. I'm just basically going to introduce you unless you want me to do more. And he said, no, I appreciate it if you don't. He said, sometimes they read so story that I get up, I don't have anything else to say. So,
yeah, he's a fun guy. You know, at the Sky Ball, man, he was dancing up a storm. So
yeah, he is not letting anything slow him down.
We look forward to having him on Hometown Heroes soon. So
yes. Yeah,
hear that, Shiloh? We're going to get you booked.
Yep. He'll be getting that message from me today.
And after the speakers are done and before the meeting's over, then we play all the songs for all the different military organizations, the Army, the Navy, the Air Force, the Marines, the Coast Guard. And I don't think we started doing the Space Command, have we?
I don't think they have a song. Though we do have one Space Force guy now. One. He didn't make the last luncheon, but we do have one. But I asked, do they have a song? And I don't think they have a song yet.
It's kind of like the Coastie, that the one Coast Guard guy we had forever and ever, and then we had 2, and now 3, and maybe 4 sometimes. So.
Yeah, I think we have about 8 or 9.
And there's Al Chatwin and Carla. Carla is a veteran, and she's also a Gold Star mom.
Yeah.
And she's a great volunteer. And she kind of helps the wagon master, Miriam. She fills in for Miriam when she's gone, but she can hold her own at directing people. So
yeah. Sometimes when we're having a little trouble in the registration check-in area, we put Carla because Carla will, yes, you put that gold wherever you put her, she's gonna make sure things get done right. Some
amazing people. It takes to put an event like this every month. It takes hours and hours of your time and other board members' times and of the volunteers' time. And then, think about cooking, preparing all the food, getting all the serving set up. And it just looks so seamless and so easy, but it takes a tremendous amount of work.
It does. And the one on base is a little bit more.
And that'll be coming up this month, and the reservation line will be open pretty soon.
Yep, April 8th.
But that's just kind of show you a little bit about roll call. And we're going to kind of go through a few pictures here of some of the people that have touched our lives that are no longer with us. And there's Mr. Stanley. And I don't know all his story, but he was in the European theater. He was a friend of mine. That was his dad. And I didn't know it until I started coming to roll call. But Robert.
Patton. He was Patton's driver.
Was he really?
Yeah.
And he lived to be over 100, didn't he?
Mm-hmm. He did. Bob Sparenberg brought him every month.
Yeah. Bob's a great guy and really loves our veterans.
Mm-hmm.
And there's Ed Graham. He was, I think he was on Iwo Jima.
Mm-hmm.
And, it's one of those guys that just kind of quiet in the background. But, I saw him at roll call and over at the DFW Metroplex Marines. He was always there. But another great World War II veteran.
Pete.
And then there's Naughty Nancy.
Man, that jacket. Yeah, nobody can get away with wearing those but those World War II guys. And if you guys don't know what we're talking about, just Google nose art Naughty Nancy and you'll see what's on the back of that jacket.
He had that jacket, and it was like those pinup pictures that they put on the nose of those aircraft. And he was on the B-17, and on the back, he had that woman, and she was naked. And it said Naughty Nancy. That was their airplane. So he came until, he was 101, 2 or
He
something
was
like that.
103.
103.
And he passed, I think, just a couple weeks after one of our luncheons. And Dosha, his daughter, who brought him all the time, still comes every month, and she goes to Boomer Jacks with us. So I always tell people, once you're like Mike Younger's, Bob's son, once you're part of the family, you're part of the family. You're just
That's
stuck
right.
with us,
It's like in the mafia, you can't get out. And there's Dwayne Jones. Yeah. What a tremendous individual he was. He was a pilot in World War II in the European theater. He went on to work for Bell Helicopter. He was the father of the modern Bell Jet Ranger, and went on to be a vice president at Bell Helicopter. And he was just such a delight. He's such a gentleman, and I just loved him to death. Just a great guy. And
Robert Blaylock.
He came sometime to our meetings, but he wasn't in regular attendance, but he was in D-Day.
Yeah. And he went back to there's a clip with him and Doug Dunbar. And for those watching that may not know this, Doug Dunbar is a Gold Star son. And he and Robert went back to Normandy, and it's a very moving video of the two of them on the beach. It's really, so if you Google it, you'll find it. Doug Dunbar returns to Normandy, and it's very touching.
Just another one of the great people that have graced the meetings at Roll Call. And we have this picture. We took it. We were having a birthday celebration for Bill McIntyre, and I think Dwayne Josie, they had birthdays about the same time. So we had that meeting, little birthday party, and there was 4 of them there. This was about 4 years, 3 or 4, probably 4 years ago. And there's only one of those still left, and that's Bill McIntyre. He's 103 now, isn't he?
Yeah, he'll be 104 in July.
And of course, Fisk Hanley's there, and BJ. Mm-hmm. There's BJ.
Yeah, man.
He had a good story.
He was amazing. I love that guy.
He was so funny, just absolutely amazing guy. And then Billy was a Vietnam veteran. We lost him last year, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And, he went to the school with us at Wayside a couple of Veterans Day. They'd have us bring veterans in to talk to the class. And I was honored to be there and listen to him talk about Vietnam, because he didn't want to be there.
No.
He got drafted, and it's, go to jail, go to Canada, go to Vietnam. And so he went to Vietnam, but, another great American. Mm-hmm. And then there's Ernie LaCroix. He just passed away last year at 104.
Yeah.
And this is the Cowtown Marathon 2019, I think that's when he turned 100.
Yeah, he was doing the 5K. He was still walking the 5K then.
He did it at 100, and the press was all out there. They proclaimed it Ernie LaCroix Day. The mayor was there, and the next year at 101, not much fanfare. But he was a great American, another pilot. And then we got Carmen Giese. Carmen was at the Battle of the Bulge, spent 8 days in a foxhole at Bastogne, went all through Europe, all through Germany, and ended up at the Eagle's Nest. And he still had a brochure from that hotel that all the Hitler's guests stayed at. So just some of the amazing people. And we can't talk about those that have passed without talking about Fisk Hanley. B-29.
Fisk in his natural element with a drink in his hand.
There's just not a woman wrapped around him.
Yeah, usually there'd be a woman behind him, not a man.
Fisk was a great American. He was a POW, but he's held as a prisoner, a war criminal. He was a flight engineer on a B-29, got shot down during a bombing raid over Japan, held in a dungeon in Tokyo, and he was liberated a couple of days before he was supposed to be, because I forget, Bull Halsey or somebody said, we're going to, I think
Yeah, the war
MacArthur or
ended.
somebody.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they wanted to wait a couple of days. By gosh, we're going to get those guys out. So he lived to be 100 years old.
Yeah.
And I got to spend his 100th birthday, and we went to about 4 or 5 parties that day. So it was a lot of good memories with Fisk Hanley.
Yeah, he was
And
amazing.
then there's Lorna. She's a great supporter of Roll Call, and she really looks after and takes care of a lot of our World War II veterans. I mean, she was always going to see Ernie. She takes Bill McIntyre and her mother out to dinner quite a bit, but just another great asset for Roll Call. And, that kind of says a lot of stuff right there. You see the crowd back there, you see Lorna, and you see the American flag. So that's kind of Roll Call. And the 11th of April, which is coming up pretty quick.
Yeah, it is.
We have the War Stories. And tell us a little bit about that.
So War Stories is going to be at the American Legion. You can see the info here, and we've still got some seats open. We're getting up there, so we've had some more folks sign up. But $20 gets you a great meal. It's going to be lasagna, spaghetti, all the fixins, all the good stuff, some dessert, and then you'll get to hear from 5 eras. So Don Graves, and a lot of people have heard Don, but Don is one of those folks that we want to always make sure we get him out there and let folks hear his story. We're going to have sailors in for Navy Fleet Week. So we tried to gear this as much toward the Navy and Marines as we could, so that it would be very relatable to the sailors coming in from Tennessee. And so we've got Don there representing World War II. Then James Vincent Jr. will be representing the Korean War. I read parts of his book. I'm not finished with it yet, and talked to him, and he's got some stories about the doing some shelling along the coast there in Korea, and being in the wonderful waters on a battleship. So he's got some great stories. And then Rex King, who many folks know from the bazillion things he does in the community, and he's been on our show. He's going to represent Vietnam, the Brown Water Navy, and talk about his stories in there. Dave Etter, who is also the commander over the region, this area for the American Legion, he is going to represent the Desert Storm Group with some of his stories. And then our new friend, Mike Nash, who is an Army vet, and he was actually in at the same time with Shiloh, 2006, 2008. So he's going to share some of his stories, and he's done a lot in the community as well. Just a really neat guy, a new member to the Roll Call family, and we're blessed to have him. So we I asked him, hey, I don't have anybody to represent this, but I think you might be the guy. And he graciously said yes. So for $20, you'll get to hear stories. You'll get to we'll have some other veterans there as well that will be sitting at the tables with folks, just like we do at a luncheon. We try to put some of the actively serving and the community people that don't normally get to talk to veterans. We try to put them at the table. So we'll spread the other veterans out. So we'll have Jack Stowe, Jim Sharp, Dan Dawkins. These guys are, other World War II, Korea, Vietnam veterans, Bill Henry, Jerry Brown. So we'll have some of those folks. They'll be at tables, and folks can visit with them and hear some stories from them while they're eating. And then we'll have the conversation. If there's time left, we'll do a little Q&A, but just going to be a really neat event. And we can't thank Matt and Jean Tuggy enough. And I know, Rick, you'll talk a little more to that for their support.
Yeah, and we're doing this along with Freedom Mobility Foundation and Major General Kevin Pottinger and his wife, Ann. are going to be there. Kevin's going to MC the evening. And then like the Tuggies, they are, Matt's not a veteran. His father was a career Army, retired as a colonel, Vietnam helicopter pilot. And they have just a real love for our veterans, and they are very generous at sponsoring a lot of things for our veterans. So for $20, I mean, right now I heard of something the other day that the fast foods, I mean, it's $15 to $20 for one meal.
Right.
This is a meal with a lot of great American heroes and a lot of veterans, and your chance to hear those at night. So, we hope to see a lot of different people that usually don't come to roll call, that have to work or something or can't make it to roll call. But you can go to roll-call.org, and there's more information there. You can get your ticket and make your reservation online. So that's April the 11th. And then this Friday at Cafe Republic, the Peace Officers Angel Fund, and this is a foundation that Mary Alvarado and her husband Phil, Mary's son was an officer that was killed in the line of duty probably 25 years ago or so. But this Peace Officers Angel Fund, what they do is all these smaller departments, Fort Worth, Dallas, Arlington, they've got a lot of money coming in. So if an officer goes down or has some kind of accident or gets injured, these smaller departments don't have the resources to help them. So Peace Officers Angel Fund, they come in and they really help a lot of people. So this is from 8 until 2 at Cafe Republic. Our good friends over there, Jimmy Palazzani and his wife Arda, and some other friends own Cafe Republic. Great place to eat. Part of the proceeds will go to the POAF. So that's this week. April the 13th and 14th is the Wings Over Cowtown. That's the air show. So this is the first time we've had the air show at NASJRB in many years. It was at Alliance, and now it's moved back home to where it should be. So you can find out a lot more about that. And then 100 Vets Who Give a Damn.
Another great organization.
What they do is they all these people come in, and then they'll have 3 different nonprofits that help veterans. It's a veteran organization that helps veterans, and they'll each get 5 minutes to tell about their organization. And then after the 3 organizations have talked, then everybody makes their donation to whatever organization they want to make. So, you get 100 veterans each giving, $100 or more, and you can sure raise some money quick. Roll Call was a beneficiary of that.
Right.
And then this month, and it's on the 18th, and our friends, Brothers Keepers, they're going to be one of the recipients. So that's another good thing that's happening. And then on the same day as Roll Call, the 26th, we've got the R. Lee Ermey Memorial Golf Classic. This is going to be at Bear Creek Golf Course out by the airport. And you can go online and find out more about that. So if you can't make reservations, if the roll call is full, then sign up for the golf tournament. There's a lot of great things that happen there. And if you like to be around Marines, there's a lot of Marines there. So,
yeah.
And then Hops and Props. This is at the Fort Worth Aviation Museum out on the north side, just at the south end of Meacham Field. And this is going to be the 27th, the day after Roll Call. And next week, we will have, Hodgson.
Jim Hodgson.
Jim, okay. Yeah, we'll have Jim on. He's the head guy out there at the Aviation Museum, and he's going to tell us more about the props and hops. And then the Legacy of Valor, we touched on that a while ago about Al Chatwin going back to the South Pacific. So This is just a way to get involved and help finance his trip over there. He's one of those guys that's become a world traveler, so it'd be good for him to get back over there. And you can go probably roll call. We can find out more about it there.
Yeah, and I think Beyond the Call is who's doing the collection for that.
Okay.
I'll try to get Dave to put something, if he hasn't already, on our website to connect to Beyond the Call.
And so you can see Al at our War Stories. He should be there. A lot of great stuff. A lot of great stuff happening at Roll Call. If you haven't been there, it's just a great organization. Of course, it's a nonprofit organization, and so the lifeblood of any nonprofit is one, volunteers, and two, funds, because you can't have a good organization without those two elements. So, and then the leadership is another element, but I think we're in good hands with the board of directors. So that's all about Roll Call, and next week we'll have Jim on. And we just look forward to seeing what he has to say about the Aviation Museum and Hops and Props. So until next week, this is Mary and Rick and Hometown Heroes. And we'll see you next week. Thank you so much, Mary.